Welcome to Max Life Man, your essential YouTube channel, expertly led by our top expert, Dr. Sterling Thorne. Dr. Thorne and his top team from the prestigious Evergreen Peaks Institute bring years of dedicated research and hands-on experience in men's health. We deliver insightful, heartfelt podcasts designed to optimize your health and unlock your best self. Gentlemen, let's face it. If you're over 60, the world has been whispering the same message in your ear. You're slowing down, it's normal, accept it. They tell you that weaker erections, fading circulation, restless nights, and low energy are simply the cost of getting older. And for decades, many of you believed it. But let me be crystal clear, decline is not destiny. Your body is not finished. It is simply asking for wisdom, asking for balance, asking for you to stop making the mistakes that drain your strength, and to start embracing the small habits that restore it. You see, after 60, it's not always about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about giving your hormones, your nerves, your circulation the care they need to recover. It's about eating in a way that fuels, not depletes, you. And yes, it's even about what you drink before you lay your head down at night. And here's the twist almost nobody talks about. Something as simple as a single glass of red wine before bed can support your circulation, your prostate, and your sleep in ways that pills never could. Not because it's alcohol, but because inside that ruby liquid are powerful compounds, resveratrol, polyphenols, that nourish your arteries, relax your vessels, and restore natural flow. But before we dive into the science, I want to ask you for something small. It might feel almost too simple. I want you to tap that like button. Now I know what you might be thinking. Doc, why would I like a video before I even hear the whole thing? Here's why. Liking this video isn't about me, it's about you. When you press that button, you're making a statement to yourself. I matter, my health matters, my future matters. You are drawing a line in the sand and saying, I will no longer accept decline as inevitable. I will choose strength. I will choose wisdom. And here's something powerful I've seen again and again in this community. The men who engage, who click like, who comment, who take that tiny step, are the men who change. They're the ones who feel their energy return, who wake up with stronger mornings, who notice their confidence rising again. So let me give you a blessing right here, right now. May every man who taps like today find unexpected joy. May his nights grow deeper, his mornings stronger, his heart calmer. May the universe itself open doors of health, peace, and energy he thought were closed forever. You may think it sounds mystical, but think about it. Every transformation begins with one signal, one decision, one small action, and when you send that signal, even in something as simple as pressing like, you're telling your mind and body, I am ready. Try it. You may be surprised at what happens next, why this matters. Now let me bring this back to the heart of our conversation. Most men after 60 fall into two traps. The first, believing masturbation is always harmless no matter how it's done. That overfrequency, harsh technique, ignoring recovery, all of it has no cost. That is a dangerous lie. The second, believing wine is only indulgence, never medicine. That the only path to better sleep, better flow, better erections is through pills or suffering. That is another lie, because the truth is this: what you do privately and what you put into your body shapes your manhood after 60 more than any prescription. I've seen men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s restore their strength not through injections or surgeries, but through wisdom. By cutting sugar, respecting sleep, pacing recovery, and yes, embracing a nightly ritual of one glass of wine, not as a party, but as a prescription nature wrote centuries ago. What you'll discover today. So in this session, we are going to uncover two realities. The dangerous mistakes men over 60 make in private, masturbation habits that silently weaken nerves, circulation, and the prostate. The overlooked secret of red wine before bed, how one glass can help restore blood flow, calm the body, and support confidence naturally. Gentlemen, this is not myth. It is not theory. It is science, lived experience, and wisdom. But none of it will matter if you don't take the first step. So before we go further, pause for just a moment. Look at that like button and press it, not for me, for yourself. Because when you do, you're making a commitment. I choose health, I choose energy, I choose life. And once again, here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today receive strength in his mornings, peace in his nights, joy in his family, and even the surprising gift of renewed confidence. May the universe grant you the very thing your heart has been quietly longing for. Gentlemen, let's begin. Because tonight I'll show you the mistakes you must stop making, and the one nightly ritual, one glass of red wine that could change everything. The myth of use it or lose it. For decades you've been told, if you don't stay active every single day, you'll lose your manhood. There's a grain of truth in that. Activity does matter, but here's the problem. What was training at 25 becomes overtraining at 65. The body you live in today does not reset the way it used to. At 20, testosterone surges back in hours, nitric oxide floods your vessels like a fire hydrant. Your pelvic nerves reset quickly. At 65, that recovery takes days. If you keep pushing daily or worse, multiple times a day, you're draining your reserves before they refill. Robert's story. Let me tell you about Robert, 65, a retired schoolteacher. He came into my clinic looking defeated. He said, "Doc, I thought if I kept at it every day, I'd stay strong. But the more I do it, the weaker I feel. My erections are softer, my energy flat, and my sleep a mess." He wasn't imagining it. What Robert didn't realize was that by pushing too often, he was lowering his testosterone, overloading his nerves, and leaving his blood vessels empty of nitric oxide. He was draining his system instead of preserving it. Hormonal fallout. Every climax comes with a cost. Testosterone dips. Prolactin rises. That's the hormone that signals I'm done. In young men, prolactin clears fast and testosterone rebounds. But in older men, prolactin lingers, testosterone climbs slowly. The result? Days of low drive and flat energy if you don't respect recovery. Nervous system burnout. Your pelvic nerves fire like high-voltage wires. Push too soon and they stay frayed, less responsive. That's why older men often report numbness or weak sensation. It's not just age, it's nerves that never got the chance to reset. Circulation and nitric oxide. Erections depend on nitric oxide. Each climax depletes it. At 20, you're full again in hours. At 60, you may need days. Skip recovery and you're driving with no fuel in the tank. That's why overdoing it leads to softer, shorter erections and drained mornings. The science. The International Journal of Impotence Research showed that excessive frequency in older men correlated with lower testosterone, higher fatigue, and more erectile dysfunction. In other words, more is not better. More can mean less. The battery analogy. Think of your body as a rechargeable battery. At 20, you could drain it to 0 and recharge overnight. At 70, that same battery takes days. If you keep draining early, the battery never reaches full power. And over time, the capacity itself shrinks. The transformation. Robert finally listened. He cut back from daily to twice a week. At first, he panicked. "Doc, won't I lose it completely?" But within weeks, his energy returned. Morning erections grew stronger. His wife smiled and told me, "Doc, he's calm again. He's patient. He feels like my husband again." That's the power of balance. Your turn. So let me ask you directly, are you pushing too hard out of fear, or are you willing to trust recovery and discover that less can actually mean more? If you know you've been guilty of overdoing it, type balance in the comments, because awareness is the first step toward healing. And before we continue, tap that like button, not for me, for you. Because when you do, you're declaring, I choose wisdom over fear. I choose recovery over exhaustion. I choose strength over decline. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today find his energy restored, his mornings stronger, and his confidence rebuilt in ways he never thought possible. Mistake #1 is overdoing frequency. Correct it and you'll start to recharge instead of drain. But there's another mistake, one older men dismiss as just aging. That can quietly steal your sleep, your intimacy, and your peace of mind, ignoring the signals of the prostate. The midnight whisper. Let me ask you directly, yes or no, did you wake up more than once last night to urinate? If you answered yes, your prostate is already whispering for attention. If you answered no, be grateful, but don't get careless. For most men over 60, those whispers arrive sooner than you think. Most men laugh it off. They joke about the midnight shuffle to the bathroom, the weak stream, the dribbling. They call it normal aging. But listen to me clearly. It is not normal and it is not harmless. What's really happening? The prostate may be small, about the size of a walnut, but it sits at a powerful crossroads, the urinary tract and the reproductive system. When it enlarges or becomes inflamed, it presses against the urethra like a hand squeezing a garden hose. The result? Weak or hesitant stream, the constant feeling you're never fully empty, waking 2, 3, even 4 times a night. And here's the kicker. That same pressure also blocks blood flow, irritates nerves, sabotages erections. Leonard's story. Leonard, 69, a retired accountant, chuckled when I asked about his nights. "Doc, I don't need an alarm clock. My bladder wakes me every 2 hours." He thought it was just part of getting older, but his lab results told another story. Prostate enlargement, kidney strain, inflammation climbing higher than normal. What he brushed off as harmless was quietly stealing his health, wrecking his sleep, and choking his manhood. And Leonard is not alone. Mayo Clinic research confirms that untreated prostate enlargement doubles the risk of infection, worsens erectile dysfunction, and even damages the kidneys over time. The body always warns first. Your body always whispers before it screams. The whispers are those nightly trips, that weak flow, that pressure in the pelvis. Ignore them, and one day the scream comes. Painful infections, total blockage, or irreversible erectile decline. What you can do, the good news, you can act before the scream. Hydrate smartly, plenty of water during the day, less before bed. Eat prostate foods, tomatoes, pumpkin seeds, cruciferous vegetables to reduce inflammation. Move daily, walking improves pelvic circulation. Balance your frequency, overdoing it irritates the gland. Respect recovery. When Leonard finally took this seriously, he cut back on alcohol, shifted his diet, and added nightly walks. Within 3 months, he was sleeping nearly through the night. His wife smiled and told me, "Doc, for the first time in years, we both rest." Your turn, so I'll ask again, gentlemen, yes or no, did you wake more than once last night? Drop your answer in the comments. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. And when you type it, you'll see you're not alone. Thousands of men here are in the same battle. And before we move forward, tap that like button. Not for me, for you. Because every man who does today is saying, "I will not ignore the whispers of my body. I will act before it screams." And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today find peaceful nights, stronger mornings, and a prostate that supports, not sabotages, his manhood. Mistake #2 is ignoring prostate signals. Once you start listening, you regain control. But there's another mistake one men carry for decades without realizing. The very technique they use in private may be training their bodies for numbness instead of connection. Habits that backfire. Let's be real. Most men formed their habits in their 20s or 30s, quick, rough, mechanical. It was all about release, not recovery or connection. And at that age, you could get away with it. Testosterone was sky high, circulation was fresh, nerves bounced back overnight. But here's the truth. What worked at 25 destroys sensitivity at 65. Rough, unnatural technique doesn't keep you young. It rewires your nervous system to only respond to pressure and speed no real partner could ever replicate. The result? You begin to feel less with intimacy and more dependent on what you've taught your body in private. Charles's story. Charles, 71, a retired truck driver, walked into my office red-faced. He admitted quietly, "Doc, I can't feel anything unless I do it myself, and even then, it's not what it used to be." Years of lonely motel nights had shaped his pattern. The grip was harsh, the speed mechanical. Over time, his brain learned this is the only way. Natural intimacy with his wife no longer registered. Charles thought he was broken, but the truth, it wasn't him, it was the habit, the science. In 2016, the Journal of Sexual Medicine reported a clear link between harsh masturbation practices and erectile dysfunction. They called it masturbation-induced ED. The mechanism was simple. Nerves adapt to the stimulation you repeat. If it's too forceful, they desensitize. If it's too fast, the brain stops responding to slower, natural intimacy. Every session is training. Every technique is a vote for connection or for numbness. Audience comment moment. Let me pause and read a comment I've seen under many videos. Doc, does that mean I've ruined myself permanently? Gentlemen, hear me clearly. No, you are not ruined. You are not broken. What's broken is the pattern, and patterns can be retrained. Just like a muscle heals with the right rehab, nerves regain sensitivity with the right practice. The reset protocol, so how do you fix it? Ease up, lighten your grip, slow the pace. Shift focus, stop chasing release, start engaging sensation. Train the brain, imagine intimacy, connection, warmth, not just mechanics. Be patient, sensitivity doesn't return overnight. It takes weeks, sometimes months, but it does return. Charles took this advice. At first, he was frustrated. Doc, I feel almost nothing. But slowly, sensitivity flickered back. One evening, his wife, with tears in her eyes, told me, Doc, I have my husband back, not just in body, but in spirit. Your turn, so let me ask you, are you training your body toward connection or toward numbness? If you're ready to retrain, type reset in the comments. That single word is your first step toward changing years of habit. And don't forget to tap that like button, not for me, for you. Because every man who does today is saying, I will choose intimacy, I will choose sensitivity, I will choose life. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today rediscover the spark of connection, the joy of sensitivity, and the confidence he thought was gone forever. Mistake #3 is about technique. Fix it and your body begins to respond again. But discipline is not just about how you act, it's also about when you stop. And that brings us to mistake number 4, neglecting recovery time. Habits that backfire. Let's be real. Most men formed their habits in their 20s or 30s, quick, rough, mechanical. It was all about release, not recovery or connection. And at that age, you could get away with it. Testosterone was sky high, circulation was fresh, nerves bounced back overnight. But here's the truth. What worked at 25 destroys sensitivity at 65. Rough, unnatural technique doesn't keep you young. It rewires your nervous system to only respond to pressure and speed no real partner could ever replicate. The result? You begin to feel less with intimacy and more dependent on what you've taught your body in private. Charles's story. Charles, 71, a retired truck driver, walked into my office red-faced. He admitted quietly, Doc, I can't feel anything unless I do it myself, and even then, it's not what it used to be. Years of lonely motel nights had shaped his pattern. The grip was harsh, the speed mechanical. Over time, his brain learned this is the only way. Natural intimacy with his wife no longer registered. Charles thought he was broken, but the truth, it wasn't him, it was the habit, the science. In 2016, the Journal of Sexual Medicine reported a clear link between harsh masturbation practices and erectile dysfunction. They called it masturbation-induced ED. The mechanism was simple. Nerves adapt to the stimulation you repeat. If it's too forceful, they desensitize. If it's too fast, the brain stops responding to slower, natural intimacy. Every session is
Audience
training.
comment moment.
Every technique
Let
is
me
a vote
pause
for
and read a
connection
comment
or
I've
for
seen under many
numbness. Videos. Doc, does that mean I've ruined myself permanently? Gentlemen, hear me clearly. No, you are not ruined. You are not broken. What's broken is the pattern, and patterns can be retrained. Just like a muscle heals with the right rehab, nerves regain sensitivity with the right practice. The reset protocol, so how do you fix it? Ease up, lighten your grip, slow the pace. Shift focus, stop chasing release, start engaging sensation. Train the brain, imagine intimacy, connection, warmth, not just mechanics. Be patient, sensitivity doesn't return overnight. It takes weeks, sometimes months, but it does return. Charles took this advice. At first, he was frustrated. Doc, I feel almost nothing. But slowly, sensitivity flickered back. One evening, his wife, with tears in her eyes, told me, Doc, I have my husband back, not just in body, but in spirit. Your turn, so let me ask you, are you training your body toward connection or toward numbness? If you're ready to retrain, type reset in the comments. That single word is your first step toward changing years of habit. And don't forget to tap that like button, not for me, for you. Because every man who does today is saying, I will choose intimacy, I will choose sensitivity, I will choose life. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today rediscover the spark of connection, the joy of sensitivity, and the confidence he thought was gone forever. Mistake #3 is about technique. Fix it and your body begins to respond again. But discipline is not just about how you act, it's also about when you stop. And that brings us to mistake number 4, neglecting recovery time. The illusion of discipline. Many men believe if I keep going every day, I'll prove I'm still strong. They confuse activity with vitality. But the truth is, after 60, your body isn't built to reset overnight. What you call discipline can actually be self-destruction. Hormonal fallout. Here's the reality. Every climax lowers testosterone and raises prolactin, the hormone of finished. In young men, testosterone rebounds in hours. In older men, prolactin lingers for days, testosterone climbs back slowly. If you push again too soon, you trap your body in a state of low testosterone and high fatigue. That's why many older men feel drained, foggy, and unmotivated when they force daily activity. Nervous system overload. Your pelvic nerves fire like high-voltage wires. After release, they need to cool. Without recovery, they stay frayed, less responsive, and dull. That's why sensation weakens over time, not just because of age, but because nerves are never given a chance to reset. Circulation and nitric oxide. Erections depend on nitric oxide, the chemical that opens blood vessels. Every climax depletes it. At 25, the tank refills in hours. At 70, it may take days. Skip recovery and you're trying to drive on empty. The result? Softer erections, shorter stamina, weaker mornings. Edward's story. Edward, 72, a retired engineer, came into my office with pride. Doc, I haven't missed a day in years. But his labs told another story: low testosterone, high cortisol, inflamed prostate, climbing blood pressure. His wife added quietly, Doc, he's irritable, exhausted, not himself anymore. I told him, Edward, strength isn't about proving you can go every day, it's about knowing when to rest. He finally agreed to space his sessions 2 to 3 days apart. He added walks, more water, earlier sleep. 3 weeks later, Edward came back smiling. Doc, my mornings are back. I feel alive again. His wife squeezed his hand and said, Doc, I have my husband back. The science. A 2016 Journal of Urology study confirmed it. Men who allowed recovery had higher testosterone, stronger erections, and lower dysfunction compared to men who forced daily activity. Rest is not weakness. Rest is where rebuilding happens. The battery analogy. Your body is a rechargeable battery. At 20, you could drain it to 0 and refill overnight. At 70, the recharge takes days. If you keep draining early, the battery never reaches full capacity. Over time, the capacity itself shrinks. That is exactly what happens when you neglect recovery. Your turn. So let me ask you, gentlemen, are you respecting your body's rhythm or are you pushing out of fear? If you know you've been guilty of rushing, type rest in the comments. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. And before we continue, tap that like button. Because every man who does today is saying, I choose wisdom, I choose recovery, I choose strength. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today find deeper sleep, stronger mornings, and a renewed sense of calm that no pill can ever give. Mistake #4 is neglecting recovery. Fix it, and your body begins to surprise you again. But from here we must confront another trap, one that promises quick fixes but leaves men weaker in the long run, relying on pills instead of fixing the root. Doc, so how long should I actually rest? 2 days, 3, a week? That's a fair question, and here's my answer: it depends. Some men bounce back in 48 hours, others need 3 or even 4 days. The real test isn't the clock, it's your body. If you wake with energy, clarity, and natural strength, you've recovered. If not, you're rushing. And now we come to mistake number 5, relying on pills instead of fixing the root. The trap of quick fixes. When performance falters, most men do the easiest thing. They reach for a pill, the little blue one, the prescription their buddy swears by, or a supplement ad promising instant manhood. And yes, sometimes it helps for a while. But here's the hard truth. Pills don't heal, they mask. They give the illusion of strength while the foundation beneath keeps crumbling. Thomas's story. Thomas, 71, came to my office carrying a bag full of bottles. He sighed. "Doc, they worked at first. Now nothing." He thought the pills had failed him, but the truth was harsher. His body had failed underneath the pills. Years of sugar damage had stiffened his arteries. Rough habits had dulled his nerves. Chronic fatigue had buried his testosterone. Pills can amplify blood flow, but only if blood flow exists to amplify. In Thomas's case, there wasn't. The science. A study in the Journal of Sexual Medicine found that nearly 40% of older men who relied only on medication reported the pills stopped working after a few years. Not because the pills changed, but because their health did. Pills are like jumper cables. They can spark a weak battery, but if the battery itself keeps dying, no cable in the world will help. Rebuilding the foundation. So what does fixing the root look like? Circulation, daily walking, nitric oxide-rich foods, beets, spinach, pomegranate. Hormones, deep sleep, light resistance training, healthy fats. Nerves, gentler technique, longer recovery, pelvic floor training. Prostate, anti-inflammatory diet, hydration, regular checkups. When Thomas embraced these, something powerful happened. 6 months later, he told me, "Doc, I still keep the pill in my drawer, but I don't need it like before. My body works again." That's the difference between dependence and freedom. Your turn. So let me ask you directly, are you building your future on pills or on your body's natural strength? If you've ever felt trapped by medication and want more, type freedom in the comments. That single word is your promise to yourself. And don't forget to tap that like button. Because every man who does today is saying, "I choose roots over shortcuts. I choose healing over hiding. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today find freedom from dependence, stronger bodies, and mornings that rise with strength again." Mistake #5 is relying on pills. But once you step away from that illusion, you realize the strongest medicine doesn't come from a bottle. It comes from the bed you sleep in. Which leads us directly to mistake number 6, forgetting the role of sleep. Gentlemen, before we dive into mistake number 6, let me read a comment one of you left on this channel. "Doc, I eat clean, I exercise, I've cut back on sugar, so why am I still tired, still weak?" That's the perfect doorway into this mistake, forgetting the role of sleep. Sleep is not a luxury. Most men treat sleep like an accessory, something you cut short to watch late-night TV, scroll your phone, or pour another glass. But the truth is this: sleep is the single most powerful natural medicine your body has. Without it, hormones collapse, circulation falters, and manhood fades. Hormones and aging. Deep sleep is when testosterone is rebuilt. Miss it, and your levels crash. Harvard researchers found that men sleeping fewer than 5 hours a night had testosterone levels equivalent to men 10–15 years older. Imagine aging a decade in a single week just because you shortchanged your nights. Circulation and nitric oxide. Your arteries repair themselves while you sleep. Nitric oxide, the molecule that fuels erections, refills overnight. Cut your sleep and you wake up drained with weaker flow and softer mornings. Nervous system reset. Your pelvic nerves are like instruments. They need tuning and reset. Sleep is that tuning. Without it, nerves remain frayed. Response dulls and pleasure fades. Cortisol, the silent saboteur. Sleep debt sends cortisol, the stress hormone, soaring. Cortisol wrecks testosterone, inflames the prostate, thickens the waistline, and drains your drive. Night after night of bad sleep becomes silent poison. Martin's story. Martin, 66, a retired electrician, thought he was doing everything right. Healthy meals, walking daily, pelvic training. But his wife confessed. "Doc, he's up until 1 a.m. every night watching shows. That was the missing piece. We changed his routine, lights out before 11, a walk after dinner, no screens in bed." 3 weeks later, Martin came back grinning. "Doc, I feel like I got 10 years back." His wife smiled and whispered, "Doc, now I'm the one trying to keep up with him." Your turn. So let me ask you, when was the last time you woke up truly refreshed? If you can't remember, that's your red flag. If you know you've been guilty of neglecting sleep, type sleep in the comments. That single word is your pledge to honor your nights again. And don't forget to tap that like button. Because every man who does today is declaring, I will rest, I will rebuild, I will rise again. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like tonight find deeper nights, calmer hearts, sharper mornings, and strength renewed in ways he thought were gone forever. Mistake #6 is forgetting sleep. Fix it and you unlock the foundation of vitality itself. And now we must face another silent saboteur that creeps into daily life, even in men who look lean, ignoring blood sugar control. Gentlemen, before I reveal mistake number 7, let me read a comment from one of you that struck me. Doc, I'm skinny, I've never been overweight. Why should I worry about blood sugar? That right there is the blind spot. Because the truth is this, blood sugar damage doesn't care about your waistline. Even lean men can suffer circulation loss, nerve decline, and silent prostate inflammation if glucose runs unchecked. And that's mistake number 7. Ignoring blood sugar control. Why blood sugar matters. Every time you take in soda, pastries, or white bread, your glucose spikes. Those spikes scar the inner lining of your arteries. Over time, your vessels stiffen, circulation slows, and blood flow to the most vital parts of your body weakens. Erections fade, energy dips, memory clouds, and here's the cruel part, it doesn't show up right away. It's silent, progressive, and by the time most men notice, years of damage have already taken hold. David's story. David, 70, a retired steel worker, came to me frustrated. Doc, the switch just doesn't flip anymore. He wasn't overweight, but his lab results told the truth. Fasting glucose high, A1C elevated, insulin resistance already eating away at his circulation and nerves. We made small, powerful changes. He swapped dessert for a handful of walnuts and berries. He walked 15 minutes after meals. He cut back on refined carbs at dinner. Within 3 months, his glucose stabilized, his mornings grew stronger, and his confidence returned. Doc, he told me, I thought I was broken. Turns out I was just feeding the wrong thing. The science. A 2013 study in the Journal of Sexual Medicine found men with poor glucose control were nearly twice as likely to develop erectile dysfunction compared to those with stable blood sugar. Why? Because sugar isn't just sweet, it's corrosive. It inflames the prostate, dulls the nerves, lowers testosterone, and silently ages the arteries. Sugar is rust in your pipes, static in your wires, poison in your blood. What you can do? Cut processed sugar, no sodas, candies, late-night desserts. Eat fiber-rich foods, vegetables, beans, whole grains to slow glucose spikes. Move after meals, even 10 minutes of walking lowers sugar naturally. Prioritize sleep, poor rest worsens insulin resistance. Stay hydrated, water keeps blood flowing and glucose balanced. Your turn. So let me ask you, is 5 minutes of sweetness worth years of weakness? If you know it's time to take control, type no sugar in the comments. That single pledge could save your energy, your memory, and your manhood. And don't forget, tap that like button. Because every man who does today is saying, I will no longer feed the enemy. I will protect my blood, my nerves, and my strength. And here is my blessing. May every man who taps like today find freedom from cravings, sharper minds, stronger circulation, and confidence that outlasts the years. Mistake #7 is ignoring blood sugar. Fix it, and you protect not only your intimacy, but your heart, your brain, your prostate, your entire future. And now, gentlemen, we arrive at the closing message. The one truth I need every man listening to take with him. You are not broken.